This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
To the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me, our Falcons analyst, Jarvis Davis, Locked On Falcons host, Aaron Freeman, and senior Falcons reporter, Tori McElhaney. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And, of course, our Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So it's not winter, but it's still cuffing season. We'll discuss. And surprise offseason acquisition, we'll download on that. Also, what are you excited about with just 9 Sundays left to go time? We'll talk about it. But first, did the players get it right? So first off, we're going to talk about Jessie Bates, of course, but I realized I didn't want to be disrespectful to Drake London, who happens to have made the NFL Top 100 this season as well. So shout out to Drake London for making the NFL Top 100, that list picked by the players. So we'll definitely talk about that. But I wanted to start with Jessie Bates III, whom we know is one of the best safeties in the NFL, now being acknowledged by his peers that way. Of course, stats are crazy. Only player in the NFL last season at any position to record 4 more forced fumbles, 4 more picks. Also had 6 pass breakups, tied for 5th in the league. So all that said, that gets him good enough to be ranked 92 on the list. Drake, of course, 97. The players may think there are 91 other athletes in the NFL better than Bates, but Jarvis, let's start right here. How Bates dropped from 74 in 2024 to 92 this year?
It's just some slick hating going on. Almost kind of like the hating I was giving out when the Falcons decided to pay him that contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see Free perked up. That's what I'm talking about, man. I'm always going to give you credit for that because you called that thing and it's worked out. Because here's the thing. Watching this team and covering this team closely, you all know. I know there are moments for me. I'm in the game. I'm just like, yep, it's about time for Jessie to come on up with a big play. And then, boom, there you go. Thursday night football. Punch that ball out. The Falcons get another possession. Boom. Or he picking off the Saints quarterback and taking it down to the house and clowning down there in New Orleans. All of those things I come to expect from him. So I feel like the drop has to do with the Falcons being a mid-team football team, right? That has to be, because when you think about just the player alone, you taking him out of that, it is no reason why he should be this low, because he is the best safety in the league. I'll go ahead and say that. So if the best safety in the league, that means you don't value safeties. That's what the players are telling me. Either you don't value safeties, or you're saying, hey, man, you got to have a little bit more better of a resume, or to be in the national spotlight and be talked about on that level, you got to be winning, right? So they're not winning. So that's the only reason I see why he's this low, because Jessie Bates, like, that dude, he's Jordan. He's Jordan. The man is that dude when it comes to making plays and coming up big for his squad.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point. I mean, it was a shock to me, Tori, that first it was a shock that he was 92. But secondly, I think the shock for me was the drop off almost 20 spots when you're doing things that no one else did in the league at any position last season. So I don't know, for you, that's kind of where I wanted to start asking you about the drop off. And were you shocked to see that kind of drop off, or what do you think is the rationale for that kind of drop off year over year?
Yeah, I think that Jarvis made 2 good points, and I'll give you credit, Jarvis. You got to get it every now and again.
Good start today.
But the part about the potential devaluation of the safety position and the impact it has on a game, coupled with the fact that the Falcons are middle of the road. And I think that there is something to be said. What is it? A squeaky wheel gets fixed. Like, the more you see, the more you hear about, a Kyle Hamilton and with the Ravens run, the more like that you're talking about, gosh, I'm trying to even think, like maybe even, Winfield with Tampa Bay. And, these are playoff teams, and I'm curious to see where those guys ultimately kind of like end up. But that's the thing is, like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The Falcons have a lot of like really good pieces, like individual pieces. Jessie Bates, AJ Terrell, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and they're putting up these like superior caliber numbers and stats and performances. But because the Falcons as a team are not putting together wins, and you're not seeing them you're not seeing those performances in the spotlight in the same way you are other teams and other individuals. That, let's be honest, like Jessie Bates is, I would say, top 3 premier safeties in the league, point blank period. But the problem is like, if there's someone who's number 4, number 5, number 6, and getting more opportunities on a national stage, even the players themselves are going to gravitate more towards those players because they're on winning teams. They're on teams that are difficult to beat, which adds to their own value. So I think that's kind of why. And it's a little bit of a perfect storm. And I'm kind of curious to see, like, if the Falcons do end up winning more games in 2025, what does next year's ranking look like?
Yeah, because that's a great call as far as for you both, as far as looking at where Kyle Hamilton is, where what the perception is about how good he is, or quote unquote how much better he might be than Jessie Bates. Because last year, even Jessie Bates 74, Kyle Hamilton 43. You gotta think that is part and parcel to what the Ravens were able to do. And even when you look at Jessie Bates stats, which we just went over for the 2024 season, and you kind of look to see, oh, okay, Kyle Hamilton, kind of where did you land? I mean, Jessie Bates stats are better. I mean, just hands down better. So yeah, I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that, hey, you're kind of with a team that isn't winning. So the perception is that you're kind of overlooked, if you will, for lack of a better term, because these teams, Kyle Hamilton, and even Tori, like you said, you look within your own division, and there's a team over there with a safety in Winfield that is actually winning the division and winning games and winning meaningful games at meaningful times in the season. So maybe you're looking at him with a little bit more cachet. But for you, Aaron, when you kind of look at where Jessie Bates landed, was it shocking to you, especially, or surprising, especially when you think about where he was in 2024 or relative to where he's landing amongst safeties in 25?
No, it was not shocking. And I appreciate you letting me go last, because Jarvis and Tori gave very well thought out, logical answers to answer this question. My answer is just basically the NFL top 100 is a joke of a list. It's always been a joke of a list.
Yes.
And, paying any amount of attention to where, 12 players that wind up voting in this list that, make up this list, vote these players, is just a waste of time. But again, we're in the dead time of summer. We have to talk about something. So I get it. And I appreciate Jarvis and Tori and T that you guys are giving this the energy it deserves, so that we can fill 15 minutes of this hour-long show that we're doing. But yeah, this is a joke of a list. It's always been a joke of a list. Next year, Jessie Bates will be 28. Then the following year, he'll be unranked, and it'll just make no sense, because it never makes any sense. And like, this is the reason why the NFL top 100 used to be, when it first started, like 15 years ago, was like a big thing that the NFL promoted early in the off season. And now they just sort of dump it away in the middle of the summer when no one's watching football, no one's paying attention to football, and then it gets mined for clicks or whatever on social media, and that's the only attention it gets, because the NFL knows it's a joke of a list. It's why they hide it away. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. It's just like, there's no logic to Jessie Bates being this low. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL for all the reasons that that Jarvis and Tori said. But like, this is a joke of a list. It always is. I will always sit here, and when you give me the opportunity to dump on the NFL top 100, I will take that opportunity every stinking time.
I love it.
Well, Aaron, since you have the floor and you're feeling some type of way, how about going ahead and telling us how you feel about Drake London landing at 97?
Well, it's the same thing. Well, I saw a lot of people, upset, like, how could Drake London be 97, and he's a borderline top 10 wide receiver, and that at least should be in the like 60s and 70s. Like, you're overthinking it. There's no logic to it. It's just like they put him on a list. I'm glad, Drake, you got on the list. You got a couple of players to talk about you for some clips that we can farm out for social media and all that stuff. It's great for you. It's an indicator that your star is rising in this league. But in terms of being 97 or 65 or 14 or whatever, it doesn't make any sense. There's absolutely no rhyme or reason to it. He should be higher, but of course it's the NFL Top 100 and none of the rankings make any sense.
Yeah, and Tori, I think I would probably be, I'm glad he cracked the list, first of all, for the first time in his career. Congratulations to Drake London for even cracking the list. But I think it would probably be more upsetting or frustrating if it was, say, in the NBA, for example, or MLB or something like that, where it's kind of, it predicates itself on, or even the WNBA, on whether or not you make, say, All-Star. Because it really doesn't have any meaning per se. As far as I know, getting on the NFL 100 isn't getting anybody any more bonus money. It's definitely not getting you into the Pro Bowl. So yeah, I think I'd probably be a little bit more frustrated if it affected his pocket or if it affected his ability to get that type of all-star or first team type recognition.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, it's like, I don't know if, Drake is on a contract year, technically speaking. Like, he's got his 5th-year option. I imagine that the Falcons will be working to try and put together a longer term deal in the next year and a half, even less than that. So for that reason, it's like, yeah, like I'm sure his agent is sitting there like, look at this, like he's in the top 100. Like, oh my God, what? Give him more money. Like Drake is going to get paid what Drake gets paid, regardless of if he makes this list or not. And so I think that is like, that's why to Free's point, it's like, it's just summer talk fodder and we're playing into it because we have nothing else to talk about. Like that's the part, that's what this time of year is. And so I can't wait to see who number 1 is and who the top 5 is and who the top 10 is, because I'm sure it's going to be, I'm sure people will talk about it, but then we'll be moving on to training camp and we'll have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, exactly. And also, Jarvis, to see how many other Falcons made it and which of those Falcons who made it, do we feel like they're ranked properly or appropriately or not ranked appropriately? Did someone not make the list? Because that's the other piece. Once you get into that 100 space, that 91 to 100 space, or even 81 to 90, and you don't see certain names on the list from your team, it's like, oh, okay, well, that person probably should have made the list, could have made the cut, but didn't. But yeah, in the case of, like we said, in the case of Drake London, excited for him anytime you get any accolade. Hey, it's not a bad thing. But whether or not it's meaningful, well, not so sure about that.
I'm actually kind of surprised he made the list, because when you think about wide receivers now, the way the peel is being tossed all around the yard, so to speak, and these guys putting up gaudy numbers in college and transitioning into the NFL and doing the same thing, pretty much. When you talk about Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, those guys came into the league with so many just accomplishments, accolades, how these guys were on the same team together, all this stuff. So, those guys making it, yeah, sure. But Drake London, he's slow. He can't separate. What are the Falcons doing? Well, here's another Terry Fontenot pick that's probably not going to work out. A top 10
pick. Are you just quoting yourself from that draft night? That's what it sounds like. You're
well, I wasn't going that far, man. Like, come on, Free, don't do me like that, dog. Like, come on now. Like, like I understood why they picked the man. But of course, I have a little, like it still hurt me that, we refused to draft a pass rusher in the first round, but I've gotten past that because they doubled up this year.
You evolved. You moved forward.
Yeah, I moved forward. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to move forward, so don't bring up old stuff. You know what I'm saying? Okay. That's what I'm saying for you. But I'm saying when it comes to Drake, though, like you got a guy that comes in with all this doubt, moving into a contract year, like Tori said. Like he's been putting up numbers consistently with whoever's at the quarterback position. Don't matter. He can have whoever at quarterback, and he's been productive. So I feel I'm kind of surprised, like given what we talk about with Jessie Bates, because the below average team, and average to below average teams with really good players, they don't necessarily get that recognition like the Justin Jeffersons and the Jamar Chases of the world, because those guys came in with super high expectations. They pretty much lived up to them. So I'm actually kind of surprised that he made the team, and he definitely deserves to be higher for sure. So we're not gonna go into why that's the case, because Freeze laid it out perfectly. Like, yeah, it's just weirdo stuff, and like you said, 10 people might vote for all these 100 players, and and this is what we got.
And here we are. This is what we have. Well, it's not winter, but it's still cuffing season. We'll take that under further review. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes that possible, because making tickets fast and simple, buying those tickets fast and simple, pretty easy for them. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worth out of buying. So Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. Game Time has last-minute tickets and zone deals for big savings, like 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World matchup. So got a lot of good showdowns going on in MLB tonight. The Tigers are taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. That might be a good look. The Brewers taking on the Dodgers. That's probably a really good game where you can maybe land some last minute tickets with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, Tori, like we said, God help us, it's still list season, but some of them are kind of funny. Some of them make us shake our heads, like the one we just talked about that Aaron is all too unhappy about. But this one I thought was funny. It was ranking the NFL's most valuable 2025 backup running backs for fantasy football managers to handcuff. So first, let me make sure everybody knows what cuffing season is, right? Everybody knows what cuffing season is. Okay. Just check. Aaron, I need you to say, give me an affirmative.
Yes,
okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. Because that's the model we are following here. We are talking about cuffing season in that regard. But here was the thing that I thought was funny, because they're saying running backs for fantasy football managers to handcuff, but somehow Bijan Robinson didn't make that list. So I'm like, okay, well, what would his production look like for you guys to cuff him this season? Tori, I'll start with you.
Oh man. So what rephrase the question for me. What should his production look like in order for me
for you to cuff him?
It's everything that he's already done. Like, I don't know why this is a thing that, like, he's a sleeper. Like, I don't know what people are looking at. Like, look at what he did last year. That's going to continue to be the case, because nothing's really changing per se in terms of what the Falcons want to do running the ball. They're still going to be a stretch zone type of team. Like, that's not changing regardless of if you have Kirk Cousins back there or Michael Penix Jr. The only difference is potentially there could be more opportunities for Bijan in the pass game as well. I know he's often said that he really wants to model his game after Christian McCaffrey. I know they were working out this summer. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's talked about his game before. Like, Bijan is going to, like, in terms of production, like, Bijan's production is going to be there. His touches, his carries are all going to be there. You know that Bijan Robinson, this offense kind of starts and stops with him. So if I'm picking up a running back on fantasy, Bijan Robinson isn't like, he's not the backup guy. He's the guy. You know, he's the one that I'm going after. He's a top draft pick in fantasy. So I think that's kind of like, it's very interesting that's kind of the narrative right now in the summer.
Yeah, I think so too. And so, yeah, Aaron, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, is if he's not the backup, or if he's not the premier running back for your fantasy football team, well, then what is he supposed to be? But then it just made me kind of extend my thought because, of course, like we said, it's goofy list season. So I'm like, okay, what does Bijan Robinson have to do to just get cuffed, period?
Yeah. I think he's going to be the top fantasy running back in the league this year. I think if you're picking number one overall in your fantasy draft, you should take Bijan Robinson, number one overall in your fantasy draft. I think he's going to have that type of season. I was talking about it on Locked On Falcons last week, where I think there's a legit shot that he's going to lead the NFL in rushing this upcoming season, given, some of the expectations. I mean, last year he put up basically the same numbers that Christian McCaffrey put up the previous year when he led the NFL in rushing. And so Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry balled out last year, but the types of seasons that they had and the types of workloads that they had last year usually are followed by years where they regress a little bit because of the amount of workload that they took. And so, I think Bijan is going to be the guy that is probably going to benefit the most from whatever regression you see from the Eagles and Ravens running game this year. Again, Saquon and Derrick Henry will be very, very good this year. Do not get it twisted, ladies and gentlemen. They will play very, very good, but it's very unlikely at this stage, and I wouldn't be mad at it, that they rush for, over 1,900 plus yards. So I think 1,800 yards is probably in the mix for Bijan Robinson. 1,600 yards certainly I think is definitely on the table for him, and that's the type of production that you can expect out of an RB1, not only in reality football but also in fantasy football.
Yeah. And what about you, Jarvis? Bijan Robinson gets cuffed for your fantasy football team. How?
Yeah, I'd love to. If I got the number one overall pick, or if I got a top 5 pick, absolutely, I'm going with him. He's going to be my first pick, and I think that just for the whole backup running back piece, I feel like Tyler Allgeier's value has gone down for a guy to maybe draft and cuff. Because I know I've used Tyler Allgeier in previous fantasy drafts, but given the way things are setting up, like Tori and Free talked about, this dude is going to be the focal point of this offense. So I see Tyler Allgeier's value from a fantasy standpoint going down. Now, granted, they're still going to use him. I definitely foresee Bijan cutting everybody up in the first 3 quarters and Tyler Allgeier coming down to close this bad boy out because they just don't have anything left. But I don't know if that presents enough value from a backup standpoint to cuff a guy like him, to bring him into the fold. But yeah, I think that, I'm going to draft that dude in the first round. Because with what he's gonna do, I feel in the passing game, continue to add to that. And shoot, he can give me what he gave me last year. 14 touchdowns and almost 1,500 yards rushing. Yes, please. Sign me up. And then you getting him more involved in the passing game. It's going to be very interesting what those numbers look like towards the end of the year. And I feel like with the conversation we've had on here and on Locked On Falcons, as far as the adding that play action piece to this offense has a chance to be really, really, really good.
That said, Tori, who else? And that could be the defensive side of the ball or even special teams as well as offense. But what other Falcon or Falcons, which other Falcons are you maybe cuffing for your fantasy football team this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think Darnell Mooney is a consistent sleeper and a consistently good option for you, especially if you're looking for kind of someone to come off the bench. Like Darnell Mooney is a guy who's going to get you some points. And I said that last year because we were talking about like sleeper guys. And I was like, don't sleep on Darnell Mooney. And I remember someone said, thanks for that advice because it ended up helping me down the road. But I do think like Darnell Mooney, because everybody's going to go after Drake London and they very well should. Like, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not saying at all don't do that. I'm definitely saying do that. But I'm also saying as well, pencil in a little Darnell Mooney love as well, because I think that there's going to be something special brewing with him and Michael Penix Jr. As much as there is with Drake London.
Okay, I like it. I like it a lot. How about you, Aaron? Any other Falcons that maybe if you were a fantasy football GM, you would want to pick up maybe a sneaky good pick?
Yeah, I'll go for the low hanging fruit. I'll go with Drake London. You know, he's going to be the guy that's going to get probably the majority of the targets for Michael Penix Jr. He's going to be the Falcons' main threat in the red zone. So if you're looking for a guy besides Bijan Robinson that has the potential to get double-digit touchdowns this season for your fantasy football team, Drake London is obviously the choice, I think, that you have to pick. And, you know, I don't know if he's going to merit a first-round pick, because the types of receivers that typically merit that, you know, you have to be like a Julio Jones type of guy. But I think probably in round 2, you know, when you're, you know, the first couple of wide receivers are off the board in your fantasy drafts, you know, swinging back around and getting Drake London in that second round, I think makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And what about you, Jarvis? Is there somebody that maybe you're looking out for, or maybe our audience who plays fantasy football, maybe they should take a look at for their team?
All right. Here's the scenario. You're desperate. It's late in the draft. No, mid-round. It's mid-round draft. You know what I'm saying? You need somebody that's going to get some checkdowns. You know, you need somebody that is going to be a really good option if there are a lot of attention going to other players on his said squad. So I believe with my whole heart that Kyle Pitts would be a solid option in that scenario. You know, because here's the thing.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's going to be like I said, there's going to be a big emphasis on the run game. You're going to be a lot of attention paid to him, and Drake London is out there. His name is known now that he's made the top 100 list, because Lord knows once you make that means the word is out. Everybody knows about 5, that 9 to 5 connection. People are going to be looking for that this year. And I'm talking about second down, second and goal. You know, you just ran it. They stopped you, you know, on first down with Bijan Robinson. Hey, man, stick that bad boy in 7 stomach, pull it back out. You know, find the 6'5", 6'6" tight end that runs a 4-4. Lord knows you don't really need it because you're inside the 10-yard line. But, you know, that's a really, really nice target. So, yeah, if you're out there, fantasy players, you know, and, you know, Kyle Pitts is going to be available because he's disappointed a lot of fantasy folks in these past few years. So, you know, he's going to be there. So, you know, he's not just starting tight end, but, you know, he might be a nice guy to get some good value, because he's going to get some looks this year because all attention is going to be focus on everybody else.
Yeah. And we got a couple of our audience members who kind of agree with you guys. So Ark, I don't know, I think that's Archangel 30 said he agrees with Tori, or she agrees with Tori. It's tough to see. But Kyle Pitts also said Kyle Pitts will be playing hard for the contract. Penix plus Pitts likes that one as well. Threw in Ray McLeod as an option. Pantera 1959 said Ray and maybe even Kyle Pitts as well might be some good looks, and then kind of made a joke too. Pitts finally gets some 30-yard crossing patterns, and maybe that'll be a good look. So yeah, I think you know, when you talk about fantasy, and I haven't played in a couple years, but I'm kind of giving it some thought. That's why I was curious to see kind of where you guys would go as well, because I think that when I kind of look at what this offense can be, why wouldn't you cherry pick this offense for fantasy football? I mean, I think to you guys' earlier points as well, yeah, you can cherry pick the obvious, but if meaning a Drake London or a Bijan Robinson, but if the offense operates like we think it needs to, what was your number, Jarvis? Because you know Jarvis keeps like creeping his number up. So what's your average number for this offense to score this season?
I think the last time we checked in on this, I think it was 27 points. 27
okay, yeah,
points.
okay. So if Jarvis is saying 27 points, I'm thinking to myself, what is it that has to be done from this offense in its entirety for the Falcons to get to that magic number of 27, which is a number he feels like they need to score in order to win games? And I'm like, well, then low key, you might need to look at Michael Penix Jr. too, because wouldn't he be the person tossing it around the yard, scoring touchdowns in order for them to get to 27? So I think that, yeah, I think this team might have some sneaky places here and there, some sneaky points where maybe they would not be a bad look for your fantasy team because of, especially in the beginning, we talked about that before as well, especially in the beginning where they need to, the scoring clip that they need to have in order to kind of get through that first 6 games, that gauntlet that they're finding themselves facing yet again to start this season. Now, speaking of surprises, what you need to do in fantasy, who might sneak up on you or on other teams in fantasy football. If you go after these Falcons, there are surprise offseason acquisitions that I think maybe could be sneaky good for the Falcons, just like some of these fantasy football picks that we talked about low key. So we'll discuss that when we run it back. So Aaron, let's go to another list. Woohoo! The thing we love best in this world, right? This was a list released by ESPN, and it was actually about surprise offseason acquisitions for every team in the NFL, and Divine Diablo was their pick for the Falcons. So my question to you is this: who was and maybe still is that surprise offseason acquisition for this team for you? And it could be for you, Diablo, as well, but maybe I'll ask if you look at it from two perspectives, right? Number one, you didn't kind of see the Falcons going after that guy or getting that guy in free agency or offseason. And number two, maybe the surprise could be, wow, if he's sneaky good, the Falcons' opponents are in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me who surprised me that the Falcons went after in the offseason, if we're counting both free agency and the draft, it would be James Pierce. Okay. But it would be James Pierce would be the answer to that question. But if we're just focusing on free agency, I don't know if there was any specific player that was a surprise, because we kind of knew going into free agency that they were going to be aggressive acquiring defensive players. And I probably wouldn't have penciled in Divine Diablo as the answer at linebacker going into the free agent period, because, I had my eyes on Jamie Sherwood from the Jets being one of those guys. But then when the Jets wound up re-signing him like 2 days before free agency began, it was like, okay, well, now we got to figure out who else is available at this linebacker spot. And then you sort of look at Divine Diablo and like, okay, that makes sense. He's got the coverage background. So for me, like, it wasn't really any individual player that was shocking in the sense of like, oh, I didn't see that coming, because like the Falcons went out there and pretty much went out and got a player at pretty much every position group on the defensive side of the ball, which we knew going into the offseason was going to be the case. I guess if I was to, it wasn't an individual player that was acquired. It was just the fact that when the Falcons lost Drew Dahlman, they didn't go out there and sign another center to come in and push Ryan Nuzul. So that sort of caught me off guard. I didn't think the Falcons were going to show that level of confidence in Ryan Nuzul to be the uncontested starting center this upcoming season. So I hope that is a good enough answer for you, T.
Yeah. No, I think you make a great point, because Diablo's kind of sneaky in that you're not surprised that they went after someone at that position. Maybe he wasn't that guy, but I think you make a great point about Ryan Nuzul as well. Like, it seemed almost like he was the de facto once Drew parted ways, and maybe you were expecting there to be a little bit more, I'll say a little bit more of a sort of a search for and going after maybe aggressively someone to replace Drew Dahlman. So no, I think it makes perfect sense. What about you, Jarvis? I mean, when you look at the offseason acquisitions for the Falcons, maybe was there a guy who surprised you similar to the way Free described it as far as who the Falcons went after, or maybe a surprise for who they didn't go after because of who ended up in place?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the latter for me in two scenarios where I was surprised that they didn't go after. First one is the one like Free talked about. I understand that Ryan Nuzul played those 8 games and we really didn't call his name. That's how you kind of judge offensive lineman. If the broadcaster isn't calling out, whoa, such and such got blown away on that one, and we ain't really hear Ryan Nuzul's name called out that much, if at all, when it comes to that. So you understand that, okay, he did a solid job for the most part. Now granted, technique, all that stuff getting better and all that stuff. Yeah, we know he had his flaws when they went to the film room, sure. But I've always been big on this, and that I'm real big on competition. I'm real big on not giving guys spots, so to speak, like putting in permanent marker in April that a guy's going to be the starter, especially when you're a starter who had been here and went out and earned a big boy contract to go to the Chicago Bears in free agency. Yeah, that's kind of, like, hey, man, we know you're here. We developed you and all that stuff, but we still got to bring somebody in just in case, break in case of emergency. So the fact that they didn't sign a guy like a David Andrews or like, hey, big head, I know you're thinking about retiring, but come on out here and see what's going on, man. UGA, that's nothing but an hour, 15-minute ride. Come on over here and you see what's going on, see what's popping. But yeah, that was one kind of surprise non-signing. And then, to be honest, I think the Mike Hughes piece was one too, because like I understood and I listened and I understand where I didn't just hear Raheem Morris, when his first year when they were talking about bringing in the corner the opposite of AJ Terrell, but I listened to him and I was like, yeah. Mike Hughes, he sold on Mike Hughes, but I didn't think they were going to double down on it again this year. And he dealt with injuries and all that stuff. So, I feel like there was at least an opportunity for you maybe to bring in a vet opposite AJ Terrell and keep spinning that wheel of guys to play opposite of AJ Terrell. But it was kind of a surprise to me that Coach, Morris and Terry Fontenot said, you know what, we like what we saw in Mike Hughes. We're going to bring him back, and then we're going to work some things out when it comes to that nickel spot. So, yeah, I think those were the two biggest surprises to me. It wasn't necessarily a signing, but it was like, okay, these guys did not sign a guy at this spot and bring in and try to unseat the guy that's already there.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm going to give a little bit of love to Leonard Floyd. I don't necessarily think that was a true surprising move to Free and Jarvis's point about, we knew the Falcons were going to go after defensive guys, like whether it be in free agency or the draft. That was a done deal. But I think getting Leonard Floyd, who, yes, is a true vet, he's been in the league a pretty long time as far as, edge rushers go. But a lot of his most productive years have been in the latter half of his career. Like we're talking in the last 5 years, he's had anywhere from 8.5 sacks to 10.5 sacks in between that area. And so I think that like we've talked a lot about how young the edge rusher group is when you're talking about Braylon Trice coming back from injury. You don't really know what he is. You're hoping Arnold Ebiketie continues to kind of make the steps that he was taking in his own trajectory. And then you get Jalon Walker, James Pierce Jr. There's a lot of young talent. I think that Leonard Floyd and the acquisition of him kind of anchors the group a little bit, because I don't think that there's any reason not to believe that Leonard Floyd is going to get his. And I think that was in terms of the edge rushers who were on the market at the time, I thought that acquisition made complete and total sense. So it wasn't necessarily to me that it was a surprising pickup. It was more like, yes, that's exactly the type of player that they needed at that point in time and will need in this year as they get guys like James Pierce Jr. and like Jalon Walker and like Braylon Trice up and running and going. You at least have somebody coming off the edge who's a bit seasoned and knows what he's doing and has been in different system and has seen some things and, can kind of just go out there and hold his own and you're not really worried about him. I think that that's kind of the sleeper nest of Leonard Floyd that I would be like, you know what? Like, I think that's a quality pickup in a year that there weren't that many opportunities in free agency that the Falcons, I think, really took hold of.
Yeah. And I think that when you, and maybe one of when you say that, Tori, it's like not so much a surprise or if a surprise, a pleasant surprise. And then sometimes it is who you don't pick up, right? Who you don't go after. And I'll throw that out to you guys as well. Aaron, is there a guy, maybe not so much that you're surprised that the Falcons didn't acquire that guy, but maybe relief that there was some acquisition out there that they could have gone after, that people wanted them to go after, but the Falcons just chose to pass them up.
Well, I know I can't think of a specific player, but I knew that first week of free agency, I was a little disappointed that the Falcons weren't a little more aggressive, trying to find some defensive players to add to their defense. So I can't think of a specific player that I was like, why aren't the Falcons signing this guy? But certainly, I thought they would be probably a little bit more willing to spend some money that week to, upgrade that defense. And I'm sure, I was in a dark place back then in the middle of March. And so I don't like revisiting that time in my life. But I'm sure there was probably a couple of players during that time that I was like, why aren't the Falcons signing this guy? But I can't think of who that is right now.
Yeah, I think where my mind goes is like a Jalen Ramsey, for example. Like that was one that a player where many were saying, get him, go after him. And the Falcons didn't necessarily go after him like aggressively, but it's okay. I think they're fine. They're perfectly okay. I'm not so that he needs to be where he is right now. So personally, I think the Falcons are fine not having acquired Jalen Ramsey in the offseason. But is there a player like that for you, Jarvis, where you're like, maybe in the beginning, I thought the Falcons should go after him, or maybe others, fan base, thought that the Falcons should go after, but you're like, you know what? I think the Falcons are good not getting him.
Shoot, can I throw Grady Jarrett in the conversation? Because here's the thing, T. Like going into free agency, it never crossed my mind. Sometimes you may try to come up with an angle that no one is thinking about or talking about, and it never crossed my mind that, oh my gosh, look at this huge number that Grady Jarrett had and how much money they can save if they were to cut this dude. I did not see that coming enough. And then when you actually thought about it, I was like, okay, you drafted a guy in Ruka Roro at D tackle in the second round. You moved up for him, so obviously you thought he had some good value there. Grady's on a big boy contract, and just the way this team is and where they are right now, it's just like this is a super tough behind decision. But from a financial standpoint and the way your team is currently constructed, you kind of get it. But yeah, it stung. I'm not gonna lie, that one stung a little bit. When it came to like, all right, coming into the free agency, I was like, okay, here's one thing. David Onyemata, they're going to cut him, save some money, and move on because Grady just been here. He's been here, and he's always been that guy, right? And then next thing you know, Falcons cut Grady Jarrett, and they save X amount of dollars against the contract, and that's what helped them be able to go out and get a guy like Leonard Floyd. You know what I'm saying? So that was one thing that it kind of caught me off guard, and because nothing really surprises me with this team when it comes to certain things. But that one kind of shook me a little bit, T.
Yeah, no, understood. That one I think was a tough call. I mean, you would hear people say that was a possibility throughout the course of the offseason or in the early stages, and even before free agency was officially open. But I think, to see it happen. I mean, sometimes when I see pictures of Grady Jarrett in a Bears uniform, Bears anything, it's weird. It's just creepy weird. But yeah, I mean, things happen. It's a business. But Tori, I think what made me kind of go to that other side of like, maybe there's an off-season acquisition, whether it was a surprise that the Falcons decided, hey, Drew Dahlman, thanks for your services, you can move on, or Grady Jarrett, we move on from. If there may be somebody out there, like I said, like a Jalen Ramsey, where it's like, okay, well, the Falcons kind of passed on that guy. Maybe there were thoughts that they could have or should have gotten him, but they didn't. And who would that guy be for you, if at all?
Yeah, so I was going to say Grady Jarrett, but I'm not going to say that because Jarvis just eloquently said everything that I was hoping to say. I was really excited about talking about that one too. It's like, no one's going to say anything about this. So
We've been together too long, Tori. Now we start to kind of think like
we're just passing the same brain cell back and forth to each other, which is not a good thing, but it is summer, so it's fine. I think somebody who I was pretty intrigued with who hit the free agency market in the same vein of talking about like, okay, the Falcons like quickly decided that they were going to keep Mike Hughes around. Like I was looking at a lot of corners in the league that I thought that they could be options. And one of those guys I believe was Carlton Davis. And what I thought he did before, I believe he broke his jaw. late in the season last year with the Lions, like, I thought he was playing very well. And I know that very early on, like, the Lions had so many injury issues that they were worried about. And I just remember thinking that he was someone who was going to hit the free agency market and be such a good pickup for what he did and kind of what he was for the Lions in the 13 or so games that he was able to show out for them. I think the New England Patriots picked him up, but he was somebody who I kind of off the bat, I was like, if the Falcons don't decide to bring Mike Hughes back, like, who could be that next presence, like true, like, veteran presence, like, but also on the younger side who could partner well with AJ Terrell. And so he kind of fell into that category for me. So I was a bit intrigued by what was out there in the cornerback market and the Falcons' like ultimate decision to keep Mike Hughes around. The thing is like I didn't hate the re-signing of Mike Hughes at all. I think that for the first time, being able to have consistency at the cornerback position to the degree that I felt like they were in 2024 going into 2025 and potentially 2026, like, that was something that I was pretty pleased about. But if I had to say a name like that would be kind of a name that I was intrigued by at the time, like back in March.
Yeah, exactly. So, guys, through all of these lists and the lack of real football going on, we're still just 9 Sundays away from week 1. So what are you guys excited about with just 9 Sundays left to go time? We'll discuss in the look ahead. All right, Jarvis. So follow me on this one. 9 Sundays to week 1. So that means I need 9 reasons that you are excited about the start of the 2025 season. So, of course, the Falcons get the opportunity in their season opener versus the Buccaneers to start off on a good note, not just with a win, but a win in the division. And you guys can break it up however you want. If each one of you wants to give 3, or if Jarvis wants to give 8 and not be nice to Tori and Aaron, I mean, whatever.
That was what I was preparing for. I was like, Bree and I are just going to sit here and just, all right, co-sign. We'll just co-sign things.
Co-sign, right?
Yep.
Check. Oh, that's a good one, Jarvis. Check.
Yeah.
But you gotta give us something, Jarvis. At least let's just be nice and start off with 3. And if we have time for you to come back with extras, we'll give you that space and opportunity. How about that?
I got a strong 2, right? So I had 2 in the possible. So,
On,
you know what I'm saying? You know, when you playing spades, you know, like 2 in the possible, I never say that out loud. I just say what I have. You know what I'm saying? I try not to. As I gotten older, I was like, man, what is a possible? Like, what does that even mean? So, you know, I got a strong 2, T. That's what I'm gonna go with. So my first one, the Braves stink. So I need the Falcons to start playing like ASAP. Like, I've been watching the summer league schedule for the Hawks, T. That's where I am. That's how low I am right now when it comes to sports. Like, I'm trying to feed the beast because I can't watch the Braves because they lose the same way every time. One-win games, they're going to lose. It's going to happen. I promise you. And you can bet that and put all the money on you want to. Like, the only little bit of excitement I have is that Ronald Acuna, Matt Olson, you know, they're in the All-Star game and All-Star home run derby. Try to see if I can get down there, sneak into the little festivities and enjoy it. But, oh, my gosh. Yeah, a bad baseball team and summer league. That is why I'm looking forward to Sundays right now for the Falcons. I need to get this fixed. And secondly, I am looking for a specific matchup. James Pierce Jr. versus Caitlin McGarry in one-on-ones. I am ready to see it. I need to see this in order to feed my soul of that one-on-one battle that's about to get ready to go down once they put these pads on. Because, you know, first day, everybody all excited. You know, camp starts. But they don't have pads on, y'all. They don't put the pads on until maybe like 2-3 days later. So, you know, I'm trying to map out when I'm going to go out to Flowery Branch. I'm like, hey, I'll be out there for the first day. But, hey, Coach, when y'all going to put these pads on? All right, cool. Appreciate you, Ra. I'll be back then. So, but yeah, those are my two reasons why I need this. As you all can see, I'm a little desperate right now.
So number one, I think you should add the Atlanta Dream to that list to make you happy because they're winning. They actually, they actually have players who are conference players of the month twice over. They have players.
Alicia Gray made the All-Star team.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
2 All-Stars, one of whom is a starter, Alicia Gray, one of whom is a reserve, Ryan Howard. So come down to the South Side. You can be really, really happy if you live life at Gateway Center Arena, kind of like I do.
I'm taking my daughter to the game tonight on Monday. Yes. So, yeah. I'll be there.
I get to say hi. I should be there. I should be there. So, yeah, the dream can make you happy. And then, okay, so going to the number 2 thing that will make you excited, it's training camp leading up to that actual day, because in your mind, that puts you into the mindset of what you're going to see at Mercedes-Benz on September 7th.
Yes, James Pierce Jr., he's really good with the speed coming off. I want to see, has Caleb been working on that? He's going to get tested. And Jalon Walker, too. Jalon coming, too. So, yeah, I want to see what the right tackle's been doing this offseason, since he's been sidelined and for high precautionary reasons and stuff, all that stuff.
And an abundance of caution.
Yes, all that stuff. Yes, all that.
So Tori, what about you? Like, give me let's not be Jarvis. Let's not do 2 impossible. If you got 3 solids, go on.
Okay.
Go for your books, Tori. Go for your books.
I can't believe Jarvis didn't say anything about Michael Penix Jr. That's again low-hanging fruit. How is that not number 1? It's just Michael Penix Jr. period. That's it. Just what he does, how he controls things, how quickly he gets this offense where it needs to be.
Yeah.
If he can do it, and if he's the guy. The Falcons have been craving a franchise quarterback since Matt Ryan's departure. Mm-hmm. Is Michael Penix the guy? He's going to have the opportunity to show one way or the other very early on if he can be that guy. So that I'm curious to see, while we're on quarterback conversations, what the heck is going to happen with Kirk Cousins? What is the season going to look like? Where could possible landing spots be for him? What could a trade agreement look like? Would the Falcons even entertain it? What could they get for him? All of those things are, if Michael Penix is 1A, Kirk Cousins is 1B, and that's just how it's going to be. And then third, because I do need to give the defense some love, how long it takes the Falcons to use Jalon Walker the way that Kirby Smart did. I think that I love the idea and I love the sentiment. They're we're going to let him be a true traditional edge rusher, and that's what he's going to do. But I'm not buying it. When you go get him, you don't get him strictly to be an edge rusher. You go get him and you value him where you do because of everything else he does too. So how quickly can he develop so that within this defense, so that you get him to that point, even in his rookie year? So those are my 3.
I like it.
Can I say something to you, Tori? Yeah. To add to kind of what Tori said, can they groom him enough to replace Caden Ellis? That'll be a nice financial friendly.
Makes too much sense.
That would be. I'm glad. I'm so good. I love that one. That's actually my favorite. That's my favorite more than what I said. That would be very interesting. I will have my eye on that one for sure. That's good. I like that one.
I love it. And what about you, Free? Give us 3, if you can, 3 reasons that you're excited about week 1 and the fact that we are just 9 Sundays away from week 1 of the season opener for the Falcons versus the Bucs.
Well, I'll go for the other low-hanging fruit besides Michael Penix, is the player we talked about earlier, potentially leading the NFL in rushing this year, Bijan Robinson. I want to see that blue magic in action again. I need to get my fix and watch him just juke and carve up that Bucs defense come week 1. So that's 1. Number 2 is, play action passing. I'm looking forward to seeing how they expand and grow and evolve their play action passing game. Are we going to get a flea flicker on the first play of the game or something like that? Something crazy, just to, let Michael Penix air it out deep on the first pass to show off that arm talent or something along those lines. And then 3, I'm not going to be able to get my fullback fix once again this year, so I'm a little disappointed in that. But, the Falcons are doing creative things with Tyler Algier and Bijan sharing the backfield together. Charlie Warner, out here, bulldozing guys as blockers. So it's close enough. It's not quite a true fullback, but it's just close enough that I can focus on those things and get just a semblance of my fullback fix as well come week 1.
I like it. I think you guys are being super creative with what it is that you're looking for in these, just this time leading up to week 1. For me, I thought to myself, okay, it seems like, oh God, 9 Sundays is so far away, right? But in actuality, not really. I mean, it'll be here before we know it. So I was kind of excited about the thought. And then to see some of you guys being your creative 3 reasons, although Jarvis gave us 2 impossible. So
I have my other one. I have my one. I'll reveal it.
Jarvis, you got a third one?
Yes, I do.
Reveal it, sir. Reveal.
Is Raheem Morris gonna play the young pups? It just to me, it just make too much sense. You got too many young guys, specifically on the defensive side of the football. If you want to sit the offensive line and some guys and figure out a way to make that work, Michael Penix Jr., I would like to see him play, but it's probably not gonna happen. Kirk Cousins probably not going to play. You may throw him out there for a series or so. Hey, he's healthy. All right, here we go. Make the phone calls, guys. If somebody gets hurt, come on down. But I just, it's just so hard for me that Xavier Watson not going to get a lot of run. You got Jalon Walker, James Pierce Jr., guys like that are going to need those live reps. And I think that we saw this with Arthur Smith. Okay, I didn't play my guys, extreme, and then came back and said I probably should have played my guys, and all that stuff. So I think that as a head coach, I know he's been a head coach before, but times change, things change. Like, things are constantly changing in the NFL. We understand that. So I feel like him evolving as a head coach with that mindset to say, hey, maybe I can't afford for my guys not to play in the preseason. Maybe these guys, this group of guys needs this. Aaron Donald, nope. Leonard Floyd, nope. Those guys don't need to play at all. We know exactly what we're going to get from those guys. But guys that aren't proven in the league, I know you feel like they can play. I know you feel like Braden Trice can play, but hey, man, we need to see it, and he needs to see it for himself as well, because coming off an injury, that first year back, oh my gosh, like the mental gymnastics that go on in your head, when you're trying to get back out there and get healthy. Am I healthy? Am I 100%? Am I 80%? What's the deal? Okay, I used to be able to beat guys like this. Now I can't, is it because I'm in the NFL and that was college? Like, it's just so many things that going on in these guys' head, or a guy like Braden Trice's head when you're coming off of that injury. I feel like those guys got to get out there, get a taste, do well, and then you can sit those guys down. So, yeah, that's my big one right there. Raheem Morris evolving as a head coach.
I like it. And for me, I almost had 4 just in case Jarvis didn't come up with his third book. But since Jarvis came up with his third book, I'll pull my 4th one off the table. And I'll go with the first one, which is who's going to get the first sack? First sack of last season, or half sack, Matthew Judon, and then Grady Jarrett with 1.5 sacks in that game against the Steelers. And I remember thinking, ooh, maybe they do have something in Matthew Judon, but I digress. But ultimately, I'm excited to see which one of these players that you guys talked about, whether it's the rookie, and it's exciting to see Jalon Walker get it done, or JPJ get it done, or whether it's one of the wily veterans. Just interested to see who kind of gets that first sack, sets the tone for this defense. That's
Put
one.
Baker Mayfield on the ground. Oh.
I was just about to say Baker Mayfield with his boots off the ground would be a beautiful thing to see. Yes, exactly. So I think that would be one of them. I think 2, for me, it would probably be, I really don't like it when we go through a show without talking about Marquise's special teams unit. So we got to talk about Marquise, the special teams unit. Will it be Koo? Will it be Craig? Like, who's going to be that guy that when the Falcons do find themselves in a tight game and all you need is for that kick to be good, who's going to be that guy to get the Falcons over the top in those tighter games? And then I'll leave us on a funny note. Will we have an opportunity in week 1 or sometime between week 1 and week 17 to see Michael Penix Jr. without his do-rag? I'm just saying, I want to know if there's going to be a Michael Penix Jr. sighting without the do-rag. That's me. That's just something I want to see. So anyway, we appreciate you guys, of course, for stopping by. And as always, for putting up with our shenanigans, especially our everydayers. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with Aaron and his frequent guest analyst, Jarvis, as your second listen. And check out some of Tori's work at AtlantaFalcons.com. See you next time.